Please welcome David Wright and his story, Crossing the Line.
When I first heard about it, I didn't take it too seriously. I'd done some in the past, but nothing this big. And I knew that there was a good chance of something bad happening. But it sounded like an adventure, and I had nothing going on at the time. My life was stagnant. I had to get away, escape from whatever was bringing me down. But once I decided to go, the pressure seemed to ease a little bit. The world was in chaos. Southeast Asia was soaked in blood. People were dropping out, marching in the streets. But what could really happen, really? No one would miss me that much, and I didn't care one way or the other what I was leaving behind. My friends were seasoned sailors, and I had the confidence they could get us through. And maybe, just maybe, an adventure would start something new in my life that needed to get me to a new place in my life. So I decided I was all in. It was my favorite time to be on watch, alone at night with nothing to slow the boat as it drove through the dark water. The quiet of being at sea, sailing under a night sky, blended with the sound of the waves rushing off the bows. Although the thought of doing something crazy had crossed my mind before, I had never had the guts to act on it. But now, after 19 days of beating up from Cabo San Lucas, being pounded by huge seas, whipped by wind day and night, and almost dying the day before off San Miguel Island, rolling the dice didn't seem so risky. And as I contemplated doing it, I thought of the events that almost ended my life. The day before, we sighted San Miguel Island in late afternoon, lying low and white against the blue sea. It was our first landfall in almost 3 weeks, and seeing it seemed to loosen that knot of apprehension that sometimes forms after long periods in the open ocean. We were finally getting to the end of our voyage. Bruce and Pete were happy at seeing land, even though it was just an island. It was a comforting sight, and we dropped off to a beam reach and would take the island on our starboard side. Our 38-foot ketch Orca was sailing well. We were making excellent time. As we drew closer to the island, and with the elation of seeing it slowly fading, Bruce and Pete went below. The sails were full, pushing the ketch at 9 knots, and the power of the wind and the sound of the wooden hull cutting the water was hypnotic. It was good to be sailing and good to be close to home. Alone in the cockpit, I checked the sail trim and gave the head sail a couple turns on the winch. The clean lines of the jib and cut of the main created a winged symmetry against the clear sky. Off our starboard rail, I could see the rugged coast, deserted coast of San Miguel seemed ancient and mysterious. Seagulls and sea eagles flew overhead, and I could see large sea lions basking in the sun on big rocks close to the beach. Then, the tranquil scene was broken when swirls of whitewater appeared off our port bow about a quarter mile ahead. The area appeared to be alive with small, confused waves, and as we got closer, they took on a bizarre appearance. It's something I'd never seen before. It wasn't wind-blown whitecaps, but more like waves colliding with each other. Although we were about a half a mile offshore in what appeared to be clear open ocean, I needed another opinion on this thing that we were rapidly approaching. I called to Bruce and Pete, "Hey guys, want to come up and check this out? I don't know what it is." 2 heads rose out of the cabin hatch and looked at me. Pete squinted into the sun. "What's going on?" "Up ahead," I said, pointing to the spot. "I can't make out what it is." I turned the wheel and dropped off a couple degrees to starboard. Suddenly, before they could answer, we were in a maelstrom of small, confused waves and powerful currents breaking over submerged rocks. The waves came from the left and the right, causing the boat to pitch and roll. Whitewater broke all around us, throwing thin walls of spray into the air. Then, it happened. Off our port beam, suddenly, coming out of nowhere, a dark mountainous wave welled out, blocking out the horizon. "Oh, Jesus," I yelled, "we've had it!" "Swing her hard to port," Bruce yelled. I spun the wheel, causing the boat to slowly point into the huge wave. The sails went limp as they lost their wind. As Orca slipped slowly up the face of the wave, the mountain of water crested and broke, its fury throwing a thick, heavy wall of foam over the boat. The blow was so great we were knocked down to starboard, the mast kissing the water as it cascaded over the decks and into the open cabin. I clung to the wheel with all my strength so not to be washed overboard. In agonizing slow motion, Orca righted herself like a giant breaching whale rising from the sea, and water showered down from the mast onto the decks. As the wave passed, and we recovered from the knockdown, another huge wave bore down on us, bigger than the first. I sheeted in the loose mainsail, and the boat gained a couple knots of speed, a little headway as Bruce climbed to the rail and sucked in the gym with a few turns of the winch. The boat lurched ahead, gaining on the wave as it came down on us. As the boat clawed up the wave's steep face, we braced for the collision. There was a loud explosion as we punched through the wave. We held on tight as the boat was knocked down again. But the speed we gained had put us past the critical point of the trough, and we came through with white water flowing over the decks in great white sheets. We trimmed the sails a little more and gained a couple knots of speed. Orca was moving faster now, away from the maelstrom, away from the deadly impact zones, and out into the safety of the open ocean. Finally, we were gliding easily over the large ground swells that followed the huge waves. The rig had held, the sails were intact, and the danger was over. We were way clean and alive. Later, as we headed east toward the mainland, the sun slipped slowly beneath the horizon and gradual darkness fell over the sea. The wind dropped off and the whitecaps laid down and disappeared. The setting sun's red glow blended with the purple hue of sky at dusk, and a quiet calmness enveloped the oncoming night as stars appeared one by one in the sky. At 2 a.m, Bruce touched my shoulder, bringing me out of a deep sleep. "It's time," he said. "Your watch." I climbed out of my warm bunk and dressed. Pete was asleep in the bunk across from me, and I could hear him snoring softly. I climbed out of the hatch and was greeted by a magnificent night. A steady warm wind pushing Orca over the smooth sea, and a sky hung with a blanket of bright stars. The rising moon was almost full. Bruce was sitting next to the wheel, steering with one hand. Orca was so perfectly balanced, under the right conditions we could tie off the wheel and she would steer herself. "Nice night," I said, sitting down next to him. "It's been one of those," he answered, looking at the stars. "Couldn't get much better than this. We've been making good time." After San Miguel, there had been little discussion about the maelstrom and the huge waves. There wasn't much to say. We'd done the right things and we'd survived. "I'll take her now," I said. "You can get some sleep." He gave up the helm and I slipped behind the wheel. "See you when the sun comes up," he said, and he disappeared into the dark cabin. Now I was alone with the boat and the stars and the sea. We were sailing on a perfect broad reach, and Orca flew through the water, throwing off a white glowing wake. My hand rested easily on the wheel, and I felt the power of the wind in the sails, the freedom of the moment and the sound of the water against the wooden hull. I was invincible, filled with an overpowering confidence. For over an hour, I sat at the helm, occasionally leaning over the rail to watch the wake boil away into darkness. It was then I decided to do it. With a piece of line, I tied off the wheel and trimmed the sails. Orca was sailing herself now. And when everything was in perfect order, I slowly climbed out of the cockpit onto the cabin top just forward of the mainmast. The boat undulated under the swells, heeling slightly to starboard as she cut the water. Standing on the cabin top, I held the mast for balance to get the feel of the boat. Then when everything felt just right, I released my grip and edged forward away from the security of the mast. Orca had now become a huge surfboard, and I would be balancing precariously on the cabin top. One slip, one sudden gust of wind, a bump in the ocean, and I'd have gone over the side. I was pushing it to the edge, dancing with death. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was surviving San Miguel the day before, or the euphoria of knowing we were almost home, or just a sudden lust for life that took me over at that moment. Maybe the escape from my mundane life had been realized. Time had no meaning. My life had condensed into this infinite space, this sensation of flying over the water unattached to anything, while below, the boys slept in their warm bunks waiting for sunrise. I was risking it all with the rebirth of my soul. Adrenaline rushing through me, night wind in the sails, and the water's hypnotic song as it flew off the bows. Was this the beginning of something, or the end? I didn't know. The stars were watching over me now, and I could feel the deep, pulsing ocean below.